badges on the nose cone, nothing else. We've come now to fit the nose cone. We're looking at a body now down here, and we can see there is in fact a bracket already welded onto the body for the nose cone fixing. There is also a lower support bracket for the nose cone. So this bracket down here is a bit flexible. You can bend that up, push it down to suit yourself. These brackets were welded on the body, and it was intended that the nose cone would sit onto the lower skirt like that and then go on there like that. Pretty straightforward. And we've got it now that you've got a minimum amount of work to do to get this nose cone to fit. We have found though that you just need to trim a little bit off the nose cone just here. Just bear with me and I'll just look on the body just to endorse what I've said. In actual fact, it is a minor amount. On the one we fitted to that car, there's a bit more on one side than the other, indicating that the nose cone might not be perfectly made. But as you see now, I'll just refer again, hang on a second. Yes, as we see now, to give you some indication of the correct place, that point just there that the bonnet comes up to, and that corner, there is about a 1 inch difference. So it means that the nose cone is fitted about like that. Now, it was intended, you may just need to take a little bit out of that there, just to get it to sit down a small amount, but not a lot. It was intended that the nose cone would fit like that. Now, there is we've come across a slight problem in so much that when you put your bonnet on, sometimes the bonnet catches don't always stay down, they tend to flip up. We've found out that that point may be a little bit wide. So what we've done on the car we've just built, we've actually removed a section out of here, like that. We've taken that away, and we've managed to fit taken that section away from there, and we fitted the nose cone to the inside of that bracket. Could we just come across and just have a look at this camera now? So you can see just there that we've got that fitted to the inside of that bracket, so it's on the inside, and that has helped us quite a lot fitting the bonnet. Carl, could you get me a couple of infill panels, this time one left hand and one right hand, right? Stainless infill panels. So now we've established that we're going to fit that on the inside, but obviously for this exercise today, we're doing this, we're going to leave it on the outside. So we'll just put it just there, and I'll just get a pair of vice grips in order to hold it in position. So remember when you fit in the nose cone, like so many other parts on the car, it's a good idea just to put them on with a small self-tapping screw in the first place, so that if there's any adjustment to be made, then you haven't got a great big hole there. You can drill another hole alongside it, and you can make the adjustment. So that's going to go on there, something like that. So we're going to drill that there like that, and then we'll put two small self-tapping screws temporary underneath there to hold the nose cone just there. If we look at the front, we can see that just very roughly we've got it more or less the right position. There's a gap there to get your finger on, and it lines up quite well with the front of the bumper like that. So that nose cone isn't far off in the right position. Now we'll just hang on a couple of minutes till Carl comes back with the nose cone infill panels. He's here already. He's quit that, Carl. Right, you've really excelled yourself there, Carl, thanks very much. That's a pair of them, the left and the right hand one yet, and they're not off on Exmo, they're off on Series 3. So there's your infill panels. These are manufactured from thin gauge from 0.7, so they're quite easy to work. Now, what happens is that these little air ducts are bent in, so you'll bend those in like that, they're really cosmetic more than anything else. It does take the blandness off that panel, and it just looks as if it's a little bit more sporty. We haven't got a problem with cooling on this Series 3, but obviously if you fitted a bigger engine or you lived in a hot country, imagine a hot country, then it may be that you would need to get a bit more air there. So what happens now is that I will need the marker, which I've got somewhere on the car, right? I will need the marker, and I will need the good Gilbo's card. So I found the left-handed ones that's about somewhere I've just had, but I do need the right-hand ones that were outside. So what happens now is we're going to tuck that down there like that, between the front bumper and the body, and the nose cone, sorry. And we're going to offer that infill panel up like that. And it really needs to come that way a bit, and you can see it fits quite well around that member there. We might just trim a little bit off there, but basically we need to trim this. They are made oversized, so there's two things we're looking to trim here. One is we need to put a mark on it where we're going to bend it that will indicate where the centre of the radius is. So we take really just along that bar there. So we're going to put a mark like that. Okay, and then we're going to look, that's great, pop them on the floor there, and find the left hand one as well. And we're going to look where this corner, this slight corner in the nose cone is, and I'm projecting down, and it comes down like that. So that is what we need to trim off, which isn't an awful lot. But remember, this nose cone is quite forgiving. We can move it backward and forward. Now, I still haven't yet done my little advert for Gilbo's. There are only one set of metal cutting shears to use, and that's Gilbo's. They are the best. It's a waste of time buying anything else. Those aviation snips aren't worth a light. Buy Gilbo's. They're not expensive. They're available from all good tool merchants. And these, I'll just use the left-hand ones, I think. So these are right-hand ones, but not the left. So you'll see that these snip this off quite easily. Then we'll just bend that along that dotted line like that, because that now tucks underneath the car. Okay? So we now need to put that in there like that. And that goes onto there. You can see that fits there nicely. So that would behind the nose cone like so, and fit in there like that. Right, if I can just show you, that's how that will finish up like that. You need a couple of self-tapping screws underneath to hold it, and you'll probably want a small fixing just there to hold it in position. But that is how that fits. Remember to put some safety edging around that hole for the SVA regulations. Now, before I can finish on the nose cone, remember one thing. You do need to previously, before you put this nose cone on, to have offered the bonnet up. but you'll probably find that as we've got that there, if we're sitting that on top of that, or that little bit taken out, that won't be far off the height for the bonnet. But remember, to get your bonnet, for your bonnet to fit spot on, you do need to move your nose cone up and down. So before you actually do the nose cone infill panels or fit anything on permanent on the front of the car, make sure you tried your nose cone on. GRP. You've actually seen how we've rectified the GRP. Quite amazing how these marks have come out, but I'd like to just reassure you now that the packages that you've collected for the Series 3 are made from new moulds, so you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever with the all-fitting panels and the kind of star cracks that were shown in the video. So these moulds are new. However, we're not maintaining that they're absolutely scratch-proof or they're absolutely 100%. So you will have to carry out a certain amount of rectification work to these panels prior to fitting them. You'll see that we've marked them with a white marker. The white marker indicates that they have been checked by somebody and that they are up to the standard that we work to now. But obviously the white marker is shown both to show they've been checked, and that is where you trim off to. The components there that are supplied from the fuel system. Obviously there is a tank, fuel pipe, 2 lengths of studs, 2 gaskets and a metal strip. The metal strip is a compound strip. There are lots of things on it, and the first 2 things on the strip are the tank straps that you'll cut off. Strips are 12 inches long and there is a hole drilled at each end. Like these straps just here. The tank is fitted into the Robin Hood at the rear, and it goes exactly between the rear diff mounting and the rear panel. It goes with the welded edge to the front, that is with the sender behind the passenger and the filler neck behind the driver. We supply 2 gaskets, which are in actual fact Ford gaskets, and the same gaskets that are supplied with the car when it was new. So we give you new ones because they do tend to go a little bit hard, and it is an essential thing that you seal the tank correctly. So the hole in the top of the Robin Hood tank is identical to the hole in the Ford Sierra tank, so that gasket just goes in there just like that, and that forms a seal for the neck. Now the other side of the coin is the sender. There are 4 6mm bolts and washers that are supplied, and they are removed, and you'll see 4 little studs welded onto the tank, and we give you the same gasket as the other side, but this time we fit it upside down with a large rubber seal at the bottom. The sender is utilised from the Ford Sierra. You'll all recognise that if you strip your donor vehicle down. They're a little bit scruffy, but if they're cleaned up and a coat of primer on the top, they're all right. This one has a return, which you can use if you wish. If not, you can blank it off or make it into a breather, and you'll see that will go inside the tank, and the float will work very much the same as it did in the Ford Sierra. Now you may just have to tweak it a little bit for perfection, but it looks like to me that it's going to be okay. This is a later type. The earlier type will need a little bit more attention. This simply goes into the tank like that, and then the tank sender goes into the tank and goes over the 4 studs that are in the top of the tank. Remember to tighten up the 4 nuts evenly and look the edge to make sure the gasket hasn't crept into the tank and that it is a good seal all the way around. You can actually see quite clearly the rubber seated down there well. That works quite well, but don't over tighten the rubber. Remember, if you're not certain, to complement the top of the seal with some silicone gasket. We now come to actually fit the tank in the car, and we will start off by putting the plastic petrol pipe down the side box section of the car. That goes down the side underneath the elbow of the passenger, down this box section and through into the engine compartment. There is a hole in the side of the body, pre-pierced. You have to drill through that hole, through the side panel of the luggage compartment floor, and you will need to put a little bit of a rubber pipe through it so that the plastic pipe doesn't chafe on the hole, and then you can feed the plastic pipe through that into the luggage compartment.
First thing I did was to take the tank scraps, bolt them to the hole here, and then put the length of studding in place on the other end of the scrap and project that up and drill through the boot floor at the point where it touches, where everything's lined up square. Same again on the other side, and I have then lifted the tank into place and tightened it up. You'll see the sender in position, these pipes positioned the correct way so that there is clearance for the float to move inside the tank. To connect the plastic fuel pipe to the sender, I thought it best to use a section of rubber piping like this. You could put the plastic pipe into this end, put a Jubilee clip round, and then use a Jubilee clip to connect that to there. Filler pipe, I have disconnected this breather that you can actually cap off, and then fitting the filler pipe. Push it down until it touches the shoulder, and then push it through the hole. Where it can be secured using the two screws that were originally securing it on the donor car. To finish the job off, at the end of the day, supply a locking petrol cap. Which goes on very neatly like that.
We've already put on the bonnet catchers, and they've been fitted with a little bit of a reinforcing plate from behind. You'll see we've just stuck on with sticky tape to hold those in position. There's some reinforcing plates there on the back of it, and also there are cutouts automatically in it. We've just had to enlarge that a little bit more for the application on this car. We've already fitted on the snap-on bead-in, the mini edge trim along the front and the back of the bonnet, and we've got this bonnet fitting quite well. To start off with, we'll show you another bonnet. This is another bonnet we've been working on. This is obviously a plain one, not lubricated. For the application today, we'll be able to show you how it is. Now, with these bonnets, I'm always very anxious to tell people not to leave them standing up like that, because they blow over in the wind and people knock them over. So keep them flat all the while. Keep them, if you take them off the car, just put your bonnet like that. It's the best way. Don't lay it the other way up, because you'll get scratches and dints off the gravel on the ground. You may need to reform the bonnet slightly. So basically, if it doesn't fit quite well, you may just have to roll it a little bit. So stainless steel is very easy to roll, and you could just have to bend it a little bit like that, just to get a little bit shape, or just bend it out like that to alter the shape, but you can alter it a little bit. In any event, you do need it to be slightly rounded, so you may just need to get the bonnet and just squeeze it a little bit like that in order to put a slight roundness to it so as it doesn't sag in the middle. But it does need a little bit of work just to get it right. Now, obviously watch you don't cut yourself on the bonnet while you're working on it, and you may find there's a slight burr on the edges. Just deburr those before you start working on the car so you don't scratch the car. Now, if we just move towards the car, I can just show you that the scuttle panel here, as you can see, is narrower at the front than the back. It's wider at the back. So in order to get your bonnet to fit really well, you can alter the amount of overlap onto the front panel so that the bonnet does overlap the front panel, and normally for it to overlap it about ½ an inch is correct, but if you want to overlap it more, then it will take up more room and you'll find you've got a slightly different gap at the bottom. So as you'll see on the car across there, that we've got some sticky tape to protect the edge of there, even though that there is a plastic covering on, a little bit of sticky tape just to protect the edge of the scuttle, and on the edge of the nose cone helps. So if you start off by just trying the bonnet on and seeing how it fits, obviously 2 people to do this is better, so that just goes over there and sits on the scuttle like that. Earlier on about these cutouts at the front, that it is intended that these brackets, that the bonnet sits on the outside of those brackets, but we'll leave it to you. So this bonnet is looking quite good. Now we do rely an awful lot on the bonnet catchers pulling the bonnet down. So, and you do need the bonnet to fit quite snug. So if we just stop just there, just hold the camera on that. We're going to tape the bonnet down with parcel tape. Now parcel tape's quite sticky, and we're looking to get the bonnet in the position that it's in now, but held down quite well. So with parcel tape, we can stick it down like that, and then at the front, stick it down like that. Okay? So we're trying to simulate the bonnet catches with this sticky tape, and we're looking to pull this down. Now this has gone a bit too far back. Just release that and bring it a bit further forward, like that. Sticking that down like that, and further down at the front. Now we've got quite a wide gap there, and on the other side we've got a limited amount. So what would happen is that when you fit these bonnets, you are relying on the bonnet catchers to pull the bonnet down. So if you just stop for a minute, cameraman, I'll get the bonnet catchers and we'll go from there. So on this bonnet that's a little bit more advanced, we've got the bonnet catchers that we're fitting around about 4 inches from the end of the bonnet there, and I think that's 3 inches, 3.5 inches from the end of that side of the bonnet. So they fit so that the flush with the edge of the bonnet, right, the smallest bits go on the bonnet, and then remember we've got these reinforcing plates on the back. So we now come to fit it onto this car that we've done already, and you can see that we've put masking tape, as we directed to you, onto the scuttle to give it some protection, and we've already fitted the strip. Now, while you're fitting your bonnet, you won't actually fit this strip on until our last resort, because you're using these bonnet catchers to pull the bonnet down as tight as you can. But no matter how much you adjust these catchers, you still won't get them to pull it down tight enough that's required. But what will happen is that the final last degree of tightness will come by putting that strip on. By putting that strip on, it'll just give you what you need to pull the bonnet down tight. Now you can see that the work that these catchers do, they do a lot of work in pulling the bonnet tight so as it fits down tight like that. Again, I have outline to you the importance of these over-centre catches, and it is important that you do use them to pull the bonnet into position. Now what happens is that there are two fixing holes for them, and basically we use these very small self-tapping screws to hold them in position. Now you can see already here what's happened is that that top hole there is where we started off, and then we put that bonnet catch on and it didn't pull the bonnet down tight enough. So all we did, we had a guess at it how far it wanted to be, and we drilled another hole underneath it like that. And then that then went in that hole, and obviously it's not terrific engineering practice to have lots of holes in your body, but they are covered up by the catches, and that pulled that down tight like that, okay? So that's about right. You've got the gap there. The gap underneath can either be nil or it can go on to be about 1/4 inch. But you can regulate that by how much you're going to move the bonnet back over the scuttle. We now come to the final part of the bonnet catches, and we can highlight a problem that we have. The problem we have now is that we're pretty certain that these bonnet catches won't comply with the SVA regulations, in so much as that there is sharp, or not exactly sharp, but there is parts that project from them that could injure people or animals when the car strikes them. There has to be a minimum of a 3 mil radius on everything that protrudes from the body. So we've tried quite hard to look for alternative catches, but obviously the ideal situation would be recessed catches, but that would be very difficult in the manufacture of this bonnet. As I've already indicated to you, we do rely heavily on the catches to pull the bonnet into shape. So we are working hard on these catches, and we're anxious that when we supply this kit, we supply them with a kit that will comply with the SVA regulations. So we found a way around it, a simple way around these catches, and it's as follows. Fit the bonnet just as we've done now, normally to get it to fit as we've done now. And when you do come to finally take the catches off, so we're going to undo them now and take the catch off. And then we're going to, we have supplied you already with 8 hood fasteners. That's 8 of the lifter dot fasteners, or 8 more of the lifter dot fasteners that you do get with your hood. And we've cut a small piece of, we've given you also some quite strong leather cloth, some fabric, and we've cut it just as you can see there, pretty simply, and we've put 2 fasteners, 2 hood fasteners on. And you'll see the principle behind what we're trying to do. Is we put this bonnet catch, we put this small fabric flap underneath the bonnet catch, and we put the bonnet catch back on, and the 2 parts of these lifter dot fasteners, they're not lifter dots, they're press button fasteners, are the female parts. So we've got the bonnet catch back on, we shut it down, and then if you just come a little bit closer, you can see how we'll bring that flap around the bonnet catch, and we'll fasten those 2 catches onto the body like so. Right, press it down onto the 2 male ones will be on the body, and we'll shut those down like that. And that will be the remedy, or at least a temporary remedy, of the bonnet catches and to get them around the SVA. I think that looks quite neat, quite purposeful, and also it doubles up. There is always a problem with these bonnet catches springing open, and by putting this flap on them, it doubles up and makes sure that they are adequately safe.
Here we have a wiper motor assembly that I've taken off a Ford Sierra. That's standard as it comes off. Now it's been marked out to show you how to modify it. Obviously we need to shorten it to the point where these 2 drive spindles are exactly 10¼ inches apart. The measurements shown here are obviously the amount of material that you need to remove. You will need to maintain a overlap so that obviously one part can be bolted then on top of the other. If you leave an inch on each section, which you will then overlap, then that should work out fine. It's very important that this shorter arm is shortened to a minimum of 6 inches. If it's any shorter than that, the levers will be wrong and the wipers won't work properly. But for the other two sections, it's simply 11 and 5/8 out of each of these two sections, taken out of here in 2 pieces and out of here in 1. Okay. So here in typical Blue Peter fashion, we have one we prepared earlier. You'll notice it looks radically different. And it is worth checking once you've done the job that everything does turn properly, nothing catches, making sure to keep my fingers clear from the working mechanism, even at this stage. You will see that we have made 2 rough angled brackets here. These will need to be bolted on to the main crossmember and then drilled, perhaps an 8th drill, to accept a couple of self-tapping screws. Those will come through the scuttle top around about there. And for the sake of appearance, it would be nice if they were symmetrical. And a nice way to check that you have got all your measurements correct is to simply operate them from above. So check that the spindles will actually run through the holes. The finished article on David's Exmo. A good point to remember is that these wiper arms are standard Sierra, which have simply been cut down to the required length. The wiper blades are, as before, standard Sierra cut down to the required length, but they will be supplied with your kit.
The wiper arms used are the arms from the Ford Sierra, and because they have the proper splined shaft hole in them to accept the splines on the motor. And we've cut them off short, about 1 inch past the end of the actual pressed arm, and then we've bent the arm at quite a sharp angle, so that when the wipers are on the car, they sit level with the bottom of the screen. You will see that you lift the flap up like that, and there is a provision to put the 13 mil spanner size spanner on it. You will find that it's possible that you will need just to grind that away just there, take that corner off that, just take the corner off that there, so that when it does sit on the car, there isn't an awful lot of shaft coming out of there, that there is, you can get the nut back on there like so. Put the nut on that. Put the nut on there like that, and then that then comes down and sits on the screen. Remember, when you're doing your wipers, whatever you do, don't tighten that nut up until you're certain that the wipers are working okay, because what actually happens is, if you get them in the wrong position, if you don't put the thing on when it's on park, then what will actually happen is that the wipers will do a full revolution and come across and scratch your bonnet. So we've got that like that, and that goes down and sits there like that. Now, the other thing is important. People often say, what about the water that goes down that hole? Then out of a small piece of rubber strip, you could even use this rubberized material we've given that. You want to cut a nice gasket that you'll put on there. You cut an oblong gasket with a hole in it and put it over that, glue it on, and that can stop the water going down there. The Ford Sierra wipers do work well in the form that you see them now. They do work well, and they're simple to wire up. Those of you who want a system from a Mini or an Allegro or an iTow, that's better, but it just gives you more work. But this does work quite well. This is the new Robin Hood Super Quiet Silencer. It's been made quieter so it complies with the regulations. It's also got the correct end on it. You don't need to cut the end to size now. It comes at the right end, and it's got a returned edge on it, a nice bell end there, so that there's not a sharp corner on it to comply with the regulations. These are SD1 gearbox mounts. These aren't supplied in the kit, but these will go on there. They're a little bit bigger than the mini bobbins. They go onto that like that. It's always best to put 2 on instead of 1. They are really expensive. We really ought to supply them in the kit, but when we put the kit up £1,000 next month, we'll probably include these in the kit. So they go on there like that. You will need an extra bracket just to space it away from the body. I'll show you that at a later point. But that then goes into the silencer, into the manifold like that. It goes in quite well. Push it in and ensure that you've got a gap between there for your hand, to get your hand in there. And that's about the right level. It should run about level with the bottom of the car like that. We've also got a 2-inch exhaust clamp. That goes on there, tighten that up. And that's your silencer, pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Moving towards the seats, you can see here we have the new seat for the Series 3. You can see that it's a lot better than the seats we've ever produced before, as it has the support needed for underneath your legs. Now, it does come more or less in the form that you've seen it. This is the prototype seat, and I'm assuming the seats are going to be the same as this. So it will be in grey, and it will be piped in the contrasting green or red piping, which is quite attractive to match the binding on the carpet and the GRP. It will come in 2 pieces, and you will have to join it together yourself. As you can see, there is a hinge. There's a hinge, a plastic hinge. You get 4 of these in the kit. That plastic hinge is what you use to fasten the seats together. So you have to carefully drill holes in the seat and fasten the hinge on the seat like that. Okay? Obviously, the hinge that goes into that flat part of the seat, that's easy. You can see that's just straightforward. But obviously, on the seat where there isn't any access because the seat's closed, that's a little bit more difficult to get the roofing bolts and the nuts in there. So it is suggested that a very small incision is made in the leather cloth just there to put the bolts through. So you put the bolts through, the nuts would be on that side, but somehow this operator has made this seat. He's very, very clever. He's managed to get his finger inside that and put the nuts on there. I'm not quite sure he's done it, but he'll get a bit of an award for that. So we've got the seat in 2 halves like that, and it does hinge. So that is the seat that's complete like that. Now you do need to put bolts in the bottom of the seat to hold the seat in. So basically what happens is that once you've assembled the seat, we come across here to a body that hasn't got anything in it. It's quite easy to do. So what happens now is that we put the seat in the car. So this has got bolts out the bottom, ignore those, they shouldn't be at this stage. So we've put the seat in the car. Now we're just assuming now that we're going to have the seat as far back as possible, because you're like me, you're quite tall, and you want the seat to fit in as far as you can. So we've got the seat in the position where we'd like it to go. So we then get a marker and we draw around the seat like that. All the way around the seat. We draw around it. Okay, we take the seat out, and you can see that we have a square like that. We'll just project round the corner. So that is where the seat goes. We also know that underneath here is a member, and here in this corner is a strengthening plate. So we know that just take this from the kit, that's the strengthening plate that goes just here. So we know that that is just there. And what we don't want to do, we don't want to be in a situation where we're going to have to drill through this plate. So what we know now is that that would be a good fixing for the seat, just there, 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 and there. So what would happen is that we would then drill through the floor with a 10mm drill, through there, through there, through there, and through there. What happens then is we put the seat back into the car, and put the seat back into the car, and we project through these holes. So we mark it with a felt tip pen, and underneath the seat we've marked where the holes need to be for the bolts to go in. Now, if we just come across to the drawing board, it is essential then that we put the bolts in the bottom of the seat to hold the seat in position. Now, it's a little bit difficult because you haven't got access to the inside of the seat. So if we take that as a seat panel, and we've already got a mark just here and just here and just there where we need the bolts to go through. So it is roofing bolts that we use, 5mm by 50 roofing bolts. So what happens then, very carefully with a restrictor drill, we drill a series of very small 1/8 holes in the bottom of the seat. So just to enlarge it, so imagine that's an 1/8 hole. So we drill a series of 1/8 holes in the seat, heading towards the area that we've got marked underneath the seat. This is 10 times as big as it should be. So we're drilling a series of 8 holes like that. So what happens then, we then, just here where that hole is, we would drill a 1/4 inch hole there. That's 1/4 there. So what happens then is that we then get the roofing bolt, and putting it at an angle, we push it into that, we've already chain drilled these, we push it into that slot that we've made with the 8 drills. It's quite tight, and then it comes into that cavity, and then as we look in the seat, from inside the seat, there is your roofing bolt there, and it's coming through the seat like that, and it's holding quite firmly. So that is then dangling through the seat. As we come back here, as we can see, we have these roofing bolts that are then dangling through the seat like that, and we've just filled that hole up with a little bit of Sikaflex so they won't come out again. So these are there and they're quite firm. What happens next is that you'll see we've got holes just there. So once you've got the seats bolted in, once you've got the subframe bolted in, you've got 2 large nuts at least sticking up through the floor. So in this application, the nuts are coming through the floor with a bit of thread on it, so we're cutting those off flush. And so that the seat fits flat on the floor, we've cut those holes out there. In order to get those right, all we do then is put a little pyramid of plasticine on top of those nuts, a bit of black paint on top, and then we sit the seat in like that, and that marks where they want to be, and then again chain drilling them with the drill, we drill those out so the seat will sit as flat as possible. So we now got the seat sitting with the bolts in going through the floor. Now we do need to give it a bit more strength, so we'll just turn the body over now and show you what the next step is. In your kit you will get an angle section like this, 1 inch by 3mm thick. This needs to be cut exactly into 4 pieces. The angle sections, 4 angle sections, now go underneath the car. So you can see, if I mark just here, we've got 4 holes underneath the car, like that, where where the seat bolts come through, and these angle sections, as you probably guessed, would then go like that. So you'll mark these off like that and like that, and the seat bolts will go through there. You can obviously supplement these with 2 or 3 holes further along. So that means the seat is firmly fixed in on these angle sections, and also it obviously stiffens up the whole floor. You will find that already on your kit you've got this thinner gauge member that goes across the gearbox like that. And you'll find that these, when these are in position, they'll butt up nicely to that member, and the whole lot when it's bolted together will make the floor quite stiff. While I'm underneath the car like this, I'd just like to draw your attention again to the 4 and 5 speed hole cutouts. So you can see that the 4 speed's already cut out, and the 5 speed has to be cut out. And they're the holes that the mountings go into. So if you are going to have the 5-speed, then you take this thing away, this part away altogether. Remember that when you put this member back, that member mustn't touch on the gearbox. So regardless of where we put these holes in the body, it's important when you put the member back in that it mustn't touch on the gearbox, because you will get a resonating through the vehicle if it touches. And the same thing with the 4-speed. If you put your 4-speed gearbox in and you find that does touch on the bottom of the gearbox, then you will have to remove that and move this panel back a little bit. Remember, there's several different gearboxes Ford use, and the casings are a bit difficult, a bit different, and that's why sometimes you'll find that it will cause a problem. But if necessary, you can cut that away and reposition that member underneath to suit yourself so that it misses. Remember, these holes here that are used for jigging while the body's put together, they double up as the seatbelt fixing holes, that the plates supplied in the kit will go underneath there for your seatbelts. Okay.
Yeah.
With reference to that on the body seatbelt mounting, they're the plates that go underneath the floor, the spreader plates that your seatbelts screw into, your safety harnesses. The thread in them is a compatible thread with the nuts and bolts that you get in the kit, in the seatbelt kit. Again, this is the back bar that goes across the back of the body. I'll show you on the body later on. In fact, I can show you on this body just here. Cameraman, this goes underneath the back like this. Goes underneath the back like this and spreads any pressures, any forces there are in the event of an accident. It goes right the way across. So it is a good idea to just to bolt it in, but before you do that, project forward and drill holes in the top of that for that to be bolted in. But that's a substantial bar, 1.5 inches by 1/8 thick material. Cover the dashboard in fabric. You'll find foam material was sufficient to do the dashboard and to do the 2 armrests at the side. We've cut this in half, 1/2 just about covers the dashboard. So dashboard with the glue. We now spray the foam, pull it tight, down a bit at your end, that'll do then. Sharp Stanley knife blade, a new one. We now trim off the excess material. We now cut out the apertures, the holes, where the round instruments go. Now to cover it with leather cloth, likewise with a piece of leather cloth supplied, we'll fold that in half and we'll cut that in half now. This time going around the edges and then behind the dashboard like that. Don't spray yourself. You spray it like that. This time we're putting it over the top, tucking it underneath that edge, under there. Snap-on finisher now. Goes around the edge of the cockpit. Start from one corner, leave a tail of around about 2 or 3 inches. Now position, you've got to trim off the ends. Use some sharp metal cutting shears for that. Don't cut them too long, too short. Stage is to cut the apertures out. Feel for the edge of the holes and do not cut right up to the edge. Stop 1/4 inch from the edge of the round circular holes. Go from the outside inwards and cut stars like so. A good idea before you embarked on this dashboard that with a small piece of vinyl you practice first, because as you all agree that the dashboard is the most important part of the car, and give it a really good dose of glue. Remember, if you get any glue on the interior trim on the vinyl, don't use cellulose thinners to get it off. Use white spirit. We're operating very quickly today because of the heat. This is one of the hottest days of the summer. We're told to wait a minute before we bring it together, but 30 seconds is more like it. Step is to silhouette the instrument holes. Now, 90% of all the food I eat at McDonald's. I'm a big McDonald's fan. I'm really impressed with the efficiency of the organisation. I'd like to think one day Royal Engineering would also be as efficient as them to supply such good value for their products. But we now come to Nissan cup noodles. Okay? These, if you open the packet, will see inside there are a load of noodles. The best thing is to throw those away like that, because they're not very clever. With the pot noodle empty canister, we cut it off 1/2 inch from the top. We then rub it down with wet and dry paper and spray it matte black, and then we use the ring like that to go into the hole like so, so that it silhouettes that hole, and you've got a nice neat black ring that will hold the leather cloth in place and silhouette your instruments. You could make something similarly to the 2 square holes. In my left hand as a cluster from the Ford Sierra with the shape curved plastic fascia. You take the fascia off and you trim the hooded case back so you've got a flat case like that. Over the front face of the instrument, you'll cover that with a piece of Perspex that you get in the kit, drilling a hole in it first for the trip sender. That goes on top of there like that. You cut it neatly, it will go into the recess that you've left, leave it stick in 1/8 up. That goes in there like that and covers that. Normally, as a temporary measure, or as a permanent measure, in fact, to seal it off, keep the dust out, etc., we would put a little masking tape around it at the 2 ends, like that. and like that. And then that goes behind the dashboard. Note the speedometer, you just push the speedometer on, and note the large multi-plug connection and the small multi-plug connection. So that then is placed behind the dashboard like so, and that then silhouettes the instruments like that. A 1/16 by 1 inch bright strip. We cut that in half to approximately 18 inches long, the width of the cockpit edge. That will go on top of that material that you've placed there. If you just feel gently, it'll tuck in between the fiberglass at the end there. It'll come flush up with the edge of the body and level with the sides. We now get a drill with an 8 bit in it, and we put several self-tapping screws in the top. Sorry, pot rivets. We're now going to trim this off. Along there like that. Wipe the swarf off the top, and then we're going to apply a liberal amount of glue. And we're pulling that tight, downwards like that, very tight, round there, and then we're tucking it underneath the box. On the car. You could, if you wished, fold up a section instead of using that straight strip, and make an angle section that came over the corner, so it would come down and it would cover more of the corner of the body. But that is adequate. If you go around to the side, Robert, you'll see how it finishes up quite neatly underneath there. It's a padded edge with your dashboard covering material on, and then with your cockpit edge finishing strip, the black strip, that will then go onto that corner like that and trap that corner in and snap in all the way around the dashboard.
Lights now. The largest rear light, this one, first thing you will need to do is take off the cover and turn it round, because they're not sided, so these will need to be matched to the curve of the rear wing. To mount this light, simply decide on your position and make sure that you are horizontal, and then you draw an outline around it, and then you can measure in for your 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, you will need to cut a larger hole in the wing to match this size here for the wires to run through. Moving on to the reversing light and the fog light. I think the better position for the reversing light is somewhere around about here. And it's simply a matter of unscrewing the cover, marking your 4, 5 holes, and drilling to screw that on. Obviously then you'll need to bring through the back of the car wiring connections from the loom to connect into either side of the bulb. Likewise for the fog light, exactly the same procedure, and wherever you think it looks best to mount it, perhaps something like that. The spare wheel mounting hoop and number plate bracket and number plate light. The hoop is simply bolted to the underside of the car by 2 bolts. You might wish to run the wire for the number plate light inside the hoop and then out through a drilled hole. The number plate backing plate has been made up from metal which you will receive in your offcut pack. Once this is in place, can then measure out the ideal position for the stud which supports the spare wheel, which does actually take the bulk of the spare wheel weight. You will receive a headlight bulb with wiring connections and a sealed beam unit. This is a common part which is fitted to many British Leyland type cars, such as Minis, perhaps Land Rovers, one or two others. And you'll notice that there is a hole left in the reflective backing of the headlight. This is for the side light to shine through. Now this connection here does not, as you can see, have provision for a side light. However, if you were to perhaps get to a Rover parts dealer, they would be able to supply you with a plastic connector which will then hook onto the bottom of this and will then hold a side light bulb. Your wire from the cord wiring loom will be able to come through here, join with the others, and then go onto the back of the side light connector. To adjust the headlight position once it's fitted, very easy. All this is on a ball and socket joint, so you can adjust left and right and up and down.
Now we come to fit the flasher lamp brackets. These bolt on underneath the headlamps and do look quite purposeful. Basically, the material that you'll get to fix the bracket on is a pretty straightforward flat piece of metal that is cut just like this. This needs to be shaped so that it is round and will in fact take a flasher lamp. So there is a little bit of work to do on this, and you do need to be quite patient and shape these by hand as I'm doing now to get them into shape. So you do need to make them round. I'm doing this very quickly just so that you know, you have some idea of how it's done. This is the kind of thing you could do. You could perhaps take to work with you and doing your break at work instead of discussing the lottery or things like that people do at work. We should be working like that. That has to be squeezed up pretty tight so that that flashing lamp will fit into there like that, just like that. And then basically you do need to put a pot rivet in a pot rivet or a small screw in there like that, and then this flashing lamp can be fastened in by various methods into there. You can Sikaflex it in, or you can put pot rivets and small brackets inside like that. So we've got that now like that. We're going to drill another hole in there, a 10mm hole or a 12mm hole, just here, like that, and then that's put in the vise, and that end is flattened, and then it's put onto the car and trapped underneath the headlamp like that. We've put some snap-on beading around that member and around the lamp around there to make it safe in case we're pedestrian. And that's basically our interpretation of how the flashing lamp should be, but obviously it leaves it open for you to change it to fit other type, to fit cycle, motorcycle flashes on there, or an endless amount of aftermarket lamps that's available. Positions. Earlier in the video we have shown you how to fit the lights. I'll just give you some measurements for the lights. Now the measurements I'm giving you are pretty liberal measurements. We're not pushed on any of the measurements on the lights. There's plenty of room that you can move the lights around a couple of inches here and there, and they'll still comply with the regulations. So at the rear, to be spot on, we'd say that the rear lights need, the reversing lights and fog lamps are 14 inches from the ground, the centre, and the rear lights are 18 inches from the ground for the centre. And if you fit them as we've shown you in the middle of the wing panel, that is okay, that is also all right. And the same with the reversing light and the fog lamp, if that can just be placed there so that it looks visually, cosmetically okay. The number plate light obviously has to go over the number plate. If you make a bracket for the number plate light, make sure there's no sharp edges on there that would not comply with the regulations. We move to the front of the car now, and we can see that the headlamps, ideally, there should be a little bit of a gap between the headlamps and the nose cone The position for the headlamps is fixed on the series through body, so there's no problem there. Just put the headlamps, bolt them into the hole in the body that there is. You can see the hole just here, cameraman, just there, bolt it into there, and that's your headlamps in. The flasher lamps also, we'll show you on a Series 3 car later on, they are 19 inches from the ground, which is well within the regulations. There is a measurement after 1986 for the distance apart of these lamps, which is 500. If you're using a donor vehicle after 1986, they've got to be 500 apart. So these are obviously further out than 500, so there's no problem there. And all the marks, all the lamps are E-marked. The flasher lamp, the side flasher lamp, sorry, if you put it on the edge of the wing like that, more or less directly in front and above the wheel, then again that is correct. As I said earlier on, for the first time we've got wide rear wings available for Exmos. These have proved quite popular because people do realise that it is possible that lots of people want to fit wider rear wheels. So these are a two-part wing and they are telescopic in design, meaning you can move them out quite wide to suit even very, very wide tyres. We have on the car already fitted half the two-part wing, and we've already trimmed the top edge, as we've given you previous directions to. We've trimmed it down to about 1.25 inches wide, and we've trimmed away the front area off the wing just there, which obviously has to be done on all Exmo wings because the body comes out. We've trimmed that away into the corner. I'll just show you now, if you just bear with me, the exact amount that's been trimmed right. There is a standard wing. That is the form that you get it. It does need trimming, and to trim it, we will start from that corner just there, and we'll cut it directly at 45 degrees there like that, straight into the corner, and then we'll cut it down that line there like that. It's possible that when you offer it up, you will need to cut a little bit more off that, so you might need to take another chunk out of it like that, and all this area you'll throw away. That'll fit onto the side of the body, and then you'll drill a hole round about there and put your bolt in to fix it. Obviously, if you cut too much off here, it isn't too much of a problem because the stone guard does cover it. So we have the wing in position, or the half wing in position. We've got it bolted at the back. Operator, can you show just here? We've got it bolted on the back, and we've got it's nice and flush just there. There is a gap there, but that gap can be filled with black silicone sealer. Now, once you've got the half a wing on like that, the next thing to do is to take the other half of the wing, and you must initially sand down the edge to make sure it's straight. So you put masking tape on that edge, and with a rubbing down block, you'll flat that edge down so that it's nice and straight. Now we've already fixed the tadpole bead into the wing. You can see that we've glued that onto the inside like that. Now quite simply, all that happens is this wing is just put on top of the wing that you have like that. So that goes on top like that, and then all that happens is that all you need to do is to line it up and move it in and out telescopically till it suits the wheels that you've got. It will move in and out quite a lot, and it does give you quite an option with regards to the width. Obviously, don't drill it until you're certain you know where it goes. If we move to the other side, you'll see that we've got this wing on completely, and if we stand just here, cameraman, you'll see that the gaps we've got are correct front and back. That's perfect. As we look down the side, we can see that the wheel is well into the wheel arch, so there's no mud going to splash up. And then we very, very cleverly, we've fastened the wing together at the back using fasteners underneath the rear light. So when the rear light goes onto the back, it does cover up that seam just there, and also the reversing lamp or the fog lamp goes at the bottom of the wing and covers it up just there. So apart from the fixings that go underneath the lights, there need be no more fixings on the top of the wing. And as we come to the front, round here, you can see that we've got one bolt there, an ordinary roofing bolt that's holding the wing together just there, and then we're just in the process of fitting the stone guard that will go onto that area like that. It will fit onto there like that, and it will cover up the gap there is just there, and then that will be pop riveted on. That will be pop riveted on quite neatly. We've already got the brown beading round the stone guard, and we're going to bring the stone guard forward so it just starts off where that cut is, and you'll see that if we just stand back, it does look quite neat and cosmetically correct. It is possible that after you've positioned the wing like that, that when it's on, then you can from underneath force some silicone sealer, some adhesive in between the two wings to firmly fix them together. Once you've got the rear wings in position, the next thing is your infill panel, which is that panel just there. It comes with a hole already in it for the roll bar. If you haven't got a roll bar, then you do need just to put a bit of scrap underneath the hole or in between the two metals when you bolt them together. That simply goes into there like that. It fits quite well. You may just have to tweak it a little bit. So that goes into that hole like that, and that stops the mud splashing up. That just needs to be sprung that way a little bit, and then you can fill that with silicone sealer in there. On this point now, we are ready to fit the roll bar. If you haven't bought a roll bar already, then they are available at £100. It is a popular extra, and they're very easy to fit. And cosmetically, they do seem to give charm to the car. So the roll bar you'll see is a one-piece main tubular hoop with two bracing stays on the back. Even kits that cost a lot more money don't seem to have these bracing stays, but they are quite important, and they do come with the captivated nuts already welded on for your Ford Sierra seat belts. So to fit your roll over bar, it's quite simple. We just put the two legs into the holes. You may just have to just spread it out a little bit. In it goes, and then these are pressed down like that till they reach the bottom, and then the two stays rest on the rear panel. Now, although the spring seats go underneath the bottom, underneath these legs, it's a good idea just to put some of your, from your offcut pack, 2 plates underneath there, just in the event, the unlikely event of rolling the car over, there is more strength. And it's quite simple, as you'd appreciate, as you imagine. There are 4 U-bolts, 4 more U-bolts supplied, large ones this time. These simply just go through the body side and over the roll bar, and in the event of you having our shock absorbers on the back, into that shock absorber angle. Pretty simple. So there'll be 2, well, one goes at the bottom, which is through the boot floor, through the body side, and then through the angle if you fitted them, and the other one goes a little bit higher up. Tighten them up, obviously putting washers on the other side. The roll bar then sits on the back panel, or it can fit underneath the back panel, depends on the position you finished up with your rear panel. But there is provision just to trim the ends off to make them the right length so they'll fit in. It is a personal preference. You can fit the roll bar with it pointing forward or backward, but I like to see the roll bar vertical, so a spirit level on it to get it vertical is a good idea. Personally, again, I like to see the roll bar painted in a satin black rather than a bright colour. So that can be done quite easily with an aerosol. Wash it down with thinners, etch it up with a little bit of wet and dry, coat of red oxide, and then on with your satin black. You can do that at the same time. You're painting that strip along the back there black, as on our cars. We'll just flash over to that quickly, cameraman. You can see that we've put on the snap-on finisher on the edge of the body just there. We've masked off on that corner to give it a black effect, and then you can see at the back we've got the cockpit, rear cockpit angle section that we've just cut out around the roll bar, and that goes on the top, and that cosmetically ties in the 2 black parts of the car. Obviously we covered that in leather cloth. At the side of the body you'll see we've got the cockpit finishing strips. In this car we've got quite an advanced design that you could possibly make yourself. We made a cap that goes over the body, slightly waisted, that's narrow at the front and wide at the back to give the cockpit a waisted look as on the original cars. You've got provision, there is strips of metal supplied in your kit to go on the top, but there isn't a full strip. But you could make those if you want to be adventurous. Look carefully at our stone guards. You see how we've fitted them carefully, pop riveting them about 1.25 inches apart, again putting the brown beading in to finish them off. We're now running several Exmo demonstration cars. Some are nicer finished examples and others are quite horrible early cars that are out there in the field being used daily by people. We have tried to anticipate any failures that there could be on the body, and fortunately we've had nothing serious yet. One of the areas that we've looked at very carefully initially was the possibility of there being a failure in the engine compartment on the engine mounting side of things. As you know, you've got these two engine bay floor skids that hold the engine mountings in, and these are adjustable so you can move them around to get your engine in the right position. Once you've got the engine in the right position, you do drill through these downwards and you do bolt them firmly onto the floor. Now all the cars that we're running now have got this simple method of fixture. We did decide earlier on that it may be possible, it may be advantageous to advise Exmo builders that they do need to strengthen this area. Now there hasn't been a need to do it, but we do supply you sufficient material in the kit in case you wish to do this. This is in the form of flat strip, and this flat strip is 1/8 thick, 1.5 inches wide, and you cut this strip into 4 pieces, approximately 6 or 7 inches long. And these pieces you will bend in the vise with a hammer, one at over 90 degrees and one at under 90 degrees. And there'll be a pair of these, 4 altogether, that will go into the engine bay compartment. Now, the areas that you see that we think there could be a failure is at the ends where we've terminated the upward turn of these sledges, as you know, are adjustable. So these we're recommending that you will fit, these brackets, you'll fit into these corners like so. So they'll bolt onto the front cross member and onto those sides like that to give it extra strength, and then at the back they will go in the back like that, they'll go in there and they will go up to the foot panel where your passenger and the driver puts the feet, and they'll be bolted on like that. So it's a good idea to make these and fit these, and this should give you the adequate strength that's required in this compartment. One other thing while we're in here, you can see that there is a hole pre-pierced for the bush, for the steering column bush that we give you. It's a good idea just to planish that a little bit at the bottom so that we get that coming at square on to the shaft that comes up from the rack like that. So just bend that a little bit so that your bush does go in squarely, and then it's a good idea to Sikaflex that bush in position so it doesn't come out. From the engine bay strengthening brackets, we move to the position of the engine in the car. Now, the height of the engine is quite critical because, as lots of you will appreciate, to get such a high engine as this overhead cam Pinto engine into such a car with such a low bonnet line is quite an achievement. To do this, we've set the engine well back into the chassis, unlike our competitors' cars. If you look at our competitors' cars, you'll see that their engine goes a lot further forward, and it does often result in a horrible bulge in the nose cone if you're going to use a Pinto engine. But we've moved our engine further back. Now this is possible because our car is wider than our competitors' cars, and therefore for the wide transmission tunnel there is still room for your feet to operate the pedals adequately. It is important that you do get the engine at the right height. Now, there are two engine heights. There is a 2 litre height and the 1600 height. Unfortunately, there are some 1600s that have a long stroke that is the same height as a 2 litre. This is easily identifiable by the fact on the very front of the cam belt cover there is a 2 or a 1.6. That is the height of that is the size of the engine. Obviously the long stroke 1600s also have this 2 on the front, which is a bit confusing. Now, it is important that when you put the engine in, that you get it in the centre of the engine bay. This can easily be done by just measuring from the side of the body to the centre of the rocker cover, 14.5, and then on that side there, it's 14.5, 14.75. So as long as you get it more or less in the centre, that's all that matters. Now, what is important is that the height of the engine is correct. Now, with this being a 1.6, then you've got a little bit more room to play with, and the critical position of the air filter is quite important if you want an air filter on your car. We've constructed a goalpost here, and this goalpost, the height from the bottom of the legs to underneath the spar, the top spar, is 7.5 inches. And this is what we use to test if we've got the engine at the right height. So we put that on there like that, and you can see that there is clearance, with it being a 1600, between the top of the cam belt cover and underneath there. If it was actually a 2 litre, which is 3/4 inch higher, then that would touch on the bar, which would be correct. So it is 7.5 inches for a 2 litre and probably 7 inches for a 1600. That's off the side of the body to underneath the cam belt cover. With it at that height, that ensures that you've got your prop shaft running at the right line, and there is room for your air filter to fit on. Your Speedograph type pancake air filter will just fit underneath the bonnet. We now come to the wheels. We get lots of inquiries about wheels for the Exmo, but basically the Exmo is designed to accept the standard size wheels from the Ford Sierra. Now, it is important that you don't rush out and buy very expensive wheels before you ensure that these wheels are actually going to fit on the car. If we look briefly at the car across there, you'll see that there is a limited amount of clearance between the coilover shock absorbers and the wheel and the tyre. Now, this is the minimum that you can actually get, and it does represent the measurement that is applicable to a standard Ford Sierra wheel. Now, we have a standard Ford Sierra wheel just here, and it is the back depth that is critical. And the back depth from the Ford Sierra wheel that is standard is actually 5 inches. So we measure the back depth by putting a straight edge across the back of the wheel like that, and measuring downwards onto the face that the wheel bolts onto. And we can see that that is exactly 5 inches. So you will bear in mind that that is a minimum amount that you can have, or I should say, that is the maximum amount that you can have. If you have any more than that, it means that the wheel will then encroach onto the spring and shock absorber. We look next to the standard wheel, and we look at a performance wheel. You'll recognise that wheel, a very desirable wheel, the wheel we can recommend, supplied by Performance Industries. It's a Mini-Lite replica. It's supplied in various colours, but most people choose aluminium, and the back depth of that is in fact 4 3/8. As we put that just there, we measure off that machine face, and again we see it's 4 3/8. That is advantageous because with the back depth being less, it means there's a little bit more clearance between the spring and the shock absorber. These wheels actually do protrude out a little more than the standard Ford Sierra wheels, but that cosmetically adds to the attraction of the car. They're not vulgar, they don't stick out too far. Now, these wheels are supplied by Performance, and as I've already stated, they are a wheel that is readily available. If you contact Performance Industries then they will in fact be able to recommend the exact correct wheel. But in any event, onto this tyre, onto this wheel, we've got 175 by 70 series 13-inch on a 13-inch rim. So that fits on perfectly, and it does clear the mudguards front and rear. You can see on this Exmo where we've fitted the performance wheels, these are actually 13-inch by 6-inch J wheels. You can see there is a lot more clearance between the spring and the shock absorber, and you can see that when you project downwards like that, there is still a reasonable clearance under the mudguard. And at the back, again, you can see that the wheel looks correct in the hole. Just while we're looking at wheels, it would be unfair to only recommend performance wheels. We've also got wheels here. These are a budget wheel, and these are supplied by Weller. They're a steel wheel, and you can see they've got a nice anodized spigot ring on just there. And these are a lot cheaper because they're steel. And again, they're a wheel that we can recommend, and they look very, very professional in so much they've got a nice rolled rim on. So again, contact Weller direct for those wheels. A PS from RS. In the kit you get one large wiper blade. From that one blade you will take the two sub blades. 1, 2. From those you'll make the two blades required for your wipers. You'll use the arms from the Ford Sierra, and you'll fasten the blades onto the end with the small screws that we provide in the kit. You now see the weather gear kit, which consists of a hood with welded seams and welded windows, and a pair of detachable side screens, a two-piece hood frame, a couple of straps, a fastener pack, and there is also a couple of fixing brackets. It all comes together in a strong black plastic bag that you can retain and put in the back of the car when the hood's not in use. Now we move on to a car that's got the hood frame already on it. And you can see that could you bring me a bracket, Carl, please? That the hood frame sits on the back of the car and it follows the contour of the car. The fixing bracket goes just here, like that. The person that's fitted these brackets have chosen to crank them. There's no need for that. The bracket goes straight on there, and then there's a simple roofing bolt goes through the longest part of the frame, and then another one through the short frame. The frame then comes up like that and goes forward like so. The straps that are supplied in the kit go on there, and they restrict the movement of the hood frame. So that is a hood frame erected like that. Now, we're now going to go on to fitting the hood. Now, I will do this in just a few minutes in actual fact, but I would stress that fitting a hood is quite a difficult job, and you really need to allocate the best part of the whole of the weekend for it in order to make a good job. Remember that these hoods fit quite well, but it would be difficult to supply a hood that was to the same standard as that of today's cars like the 911 Porsche convertible and BMW cabriolets and things like that. So if you just could give us a little bit of allowance for the fact it is a 50s style car. It is quite waterproof, although on a really bad downpour you will get a little bit of water coming in here and there. So Carl, if you could just bring the hood across, and cameraman come to the front. You can see we've fitted a number of fasteners to the front of this hood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you'll start off with one in the centre and then 2 on the outside. And you'll start from the very front with this hood. Carl, just a word of warning with these these hood fasteners is that you must drill the windscreen, and it's important that you put a restrictor onto your drill. So using an 1/8 drill, and you need to put a little bit of tube, a little bit of pipe, petrol pipe or something, onto your drill, so there is only 1/4 of an inch of drill sticking through. So when you drill the frame, if there is glass behind it, then your drill won't go straight into the glass. Now once you've drilled the hole in the glass, you've then got to get a pot rivet and pop the stem end of a pot rivet in the hole and figure what's down there. And obviously if there's glass there, then you must be very, very careful when you screw your screw in. So we do give you in the kit some very short self-tapping screws to put these fasteners on with, or there may even be short pot rivets. I'm not certain what's in the hood pack, I will check. But whatever happens, make sure that you don't damage the glass. Be very careful, make sure that the screws and the pot rivets don't go too far and don't damage the glass. So we've now got these hood fasteners on the front of the hood, the frame. The next thing is to offer the hood onto the front of the frame. Now you have got to fasten the fasteners onto the front of the hood. So if you just give us a hand here, Carl, with this. So we've got the hood, we bring it back like that. Always be careful of these windows. They're quite robust now, but you've still got to be careful of the windows. So that's good. So that now, we really, when we're doing this, we start off with the middle stud. So you'll put the middle stud in like that, and then you've really got to just project over and make sure that you get all of these in like this, and they're all like that. So you're going to start off by putting the hood on the front of there. When you put these fasteners in, you'll see they're a 3-part fastener. They are a quality fastener. They've got better recently. They've come from a different source now. You'll see how they go. You need to bifurcate them over to fasten the 2 parts together. With that on there like that, we're now going to lay the hood over the roll bar like that. And we're also now going to take a roll of parcel tape. You could use masking tape, but I think it's gone. And the parcel tape, if you come to the back of the car, you need to put the parcel tape on the back of the car, or you could draw lines, or as in the case of this car, we've already got some blue lines on the plastic, which are always quite straight. But what you need to do is to make sure you've got some horizontal lines on the back of the car to work to. So we'll just put that there like that. We're just assuming that that's a horizontal line there, which is not far. Now the next thing you do is you do erect the frame. So we've got the frame already, and we bring the frame up like that. Bring the small hoop backward, Carl. Okay, and that goes like that. So we're now going to bring the hood over there. So it's on there like that. Now, what happens now is, you do need help. Cut that like this. You do need help, and you've got to pray that you're doing this in warm weather and not when it's frosty and horrible. So you must ignore all these fasteners on here, pretend they're not there. So you've got the hood, and you see it's come down past there like that, which is quite good. And you can see that you've got the hood frame tucked into the corner where that sewn seam is, which is also good. And ignore these fasteners, they're not there yet. So back to being frosty and horrible, if it is hot cold, then it's very difficult for you to fit this hood because the vinyl or the material is quite stiff. So you're doing it in a warm garage, and if necessary put a blow heater inside the car. So the next thing is, if you want to pull the hood tight, so you need to make a note of that seam there, make a note of the seam there, and measure it from the side of the body, so you've got the hood in the middle of the body, right? So assuming you've got it in square, you then need the sticky tape like that, and you need to be putting that on there and pulling it as tight as you can, like that. But remember, this is the reason we put that sticky tape line on the car, so so that well, you're going to put it down square. So you're using that as a bit of a datum line. You're using that as a datum line. You stick the tape down, Carl. Go on, down you go. Okay. Come back to this side again. And we're pulling that down tight. Now, I'm only doing this once because time isn't with us today. Carl's got a hot date tonight, and I've got to edit this video. So we've now had one bite at that, and that's quite good. You can see that it must be quite square because the bars and the roll bar are nicely on the inside of the window, and we've pulled it down as much as we can. And what would happen is that we'd have another go at this. We'd pull this down another ½ an inch. And then when we're satisfied that it was down as far as we can, and the hood was quite tight like that, we would then supplement these with more bits of sticky tape, and we'd make sure that that was level. It's moved up from that side, it's not level now. We'd make sure that was level, and then we'd mark out, we'd space these out evenly. They look like about 6 inches apart. We'd space those out evenly so they're the same all the way around. We'd mark it with a little pen. It looks like we've got about 3/4 of an inch. Then we'd have a drill and some ordinary panhead self-tappers, and we drill through the hood and through the body and put that panhead self-tapper in. So that they would go all the way around. We'd move away all around the body like that, and then you would systematically take them all out, put the hood on the table, and fasten these fasteners on. And then with the fasteners on, we then fasten the female fasteners on, and then we'd put the male ones on the body. So that's basically how you fit the hood. There is more work to it than that, but that is basically it. So if we just fasten this hood down now, Carl, can you just go around there and fasten that down, please? The side screens are a nice side screen. They've got buyback windows in that are welded. There is a metal frame inside them, so it's possible to tweak the metal frame to get it to fit your car nicely. It's got Velcro fastened to it so that it helps you to keep the drafts out. And there is a set of lift-off hinges supplied in your kit. Now be very, very careful because they're a bit confusing, these hinges, because there is 8 parts to them, and each part is, half the parts are different, so there's 4 different lots of parts in. So basically, look at them and decide how it works. Look carefully at the way we fitted them. So we fitted the hinge to the top of the pillar, okay? And the other hinge is an inch from the bottom of the pillar, from that corner. So they go onto there, exactly butting up to the outside of the pillar, and then the corresponding parts are pop riveted or fastened on with small nuts and bolts onto the frame of the screen. Okay? You must feel the frame to make sure you know where the frame is. In your own mind, establish how wide the frame is, what you can drill. And then basically, that just fastens on there like that. That fastens on there like that, goes in there, and then it tucks in behind the pillar so that there isn't any drafts that go down there. And we've just tweaked that a bit already, just so it goes around that corner, and you can see that it fits quite well like that. The Velcro holds it in the top, and there is some straps you put to the inside to pull it in, to fasten it from the inside. So that's it on. There's a gutter there that does give you a little bit of protection from the rain. So that gutter's like that. That catches a bit of water and it stops it running inside the body. So it is quite a good fitting hood. We're pleased with it. It's the best one we had yet, and I'm sure that you'll be happy with it as well. To start with, we must confess that there are some sharp edges on the bodywork. But we've made very little provision to make these safe, or so that you won't cut yourself on them. You've noted that we have given you gloves with the kit so that when you handle the body you won't cut yourself. Hopefully you'll wear the gloves during the difficult operations of building the kit. But it's important that when you get the body home you have a good look at it and you work out all the areas that do need to be ground down and protected. There is a snap-on finisher supplied in the kit that goes on the edge of the dashboard, that you should put on straight away. All the other shop areas, it's a good idea to get some old garden hose, split it down the long length and put those over the corners. Remember that those of you who are unskilled in mechanical operations may tend to be a little bit clumsy. We've seen customers who's come in who've stripped the donor vehicle down to a lost skin from the knuckles, various cuts, burns, etc. So please do be careful. In addition to all this, make sure that when you're working on the car, that in particular you disconnect the earth lead of the battery first. The blue pre-build manual we've given you is wrong. They have told you to disconnect the wrong lead. Make sure it is the earth lead you disconnect first. That really should be the first operation on the car. Please don't jack the car up and put it on bricks or milk crates. Make sure it's on proper axle stands and make sure that there's someone with you all the while you're working underneath the car. Petrol is a main hazard and a big danger. Make sure that you drain the petrol from your donor vehicle and you put it safely into vessels out of the way. The empty petrol tank is an equal danger. Make sure that you fill that with water and put it at the bottom of the garden until you can safely dispose of it. In general, please be careful. Be careful also when you've completed your Robin Hood and you're test driving it. Remember, there are areas that you may not have built correctly, so before you go at speed, make sure you check it and you get someone else to check it to give you a second opinion. In general, please be careful. Remember, life is precious. Some of you will have already bought your donor vehicle, some of you are still looking. As you know, any Ford Sierra with a Pinto engine is suitable for the Robin Hood. You can go on and use the non-Pinto engines, which is the V6 engine and of course the CVH engine. Both those engines are suitable, although you will need to do some modification yourself, and obviously the Pinto manifold that we supply won't fit. In addition, there is the Rover V8 engine which you fit, but this does need some modifications to the bodywork to get the gearbox in. We will be doing a kit in the future that will be able to accommodate the Rover V8 engine and gearbox without any modifications at all. And in that kit we'll be supplying the minimum of the engine mountings and the exhaust manifolds. But to get back to your donor vehicle, the obvious choice for most people is in fact the 2-litre Pinto with a 5-speed gearbox. These are readily available, there's plenty about, there's no shortage at all. The best source for these is to look in the local free AdMag paper or exchanging marked, or to go along to your local car auction. Normally for something like a B reg or a C reg, you'll be paying around about £150 for an MOT failure. That's a car usually you can get in and drive, and it hasn't got any major defects. Now, you must decide yourself whether or not you want to completely recondition the car that you've chosen to use as a donor vehicle, or whether you just want to clean the components down and put them back in that form. A lot revolves around your own skills and the costs and the money you have available at the end of the day. But basically, most people decide to carefully choose a donor vehicle. They make sure it's a good runner, and then go out, they can test it, they can road test it to make sure the engine's sound and there are no whines from the diff or from the gearbox. And these components can just be carefully painted and put straight into the donor vehicle. Things like the brakes need a little bit more inspection, and for the low cost of linings and brake pads, need to be overhauled. You do get new discs in the kit, and you do get brake pipes in the kit, both metal and flexi. So those items, coupled with probably some reconditioned calipers and new rear wheel cylinders, will give you years of trouble-free braking. People often decide to pay a little bit more for the donor vehicle and get a gear. This comes with a rev counter and alloy wheels, which is a good idea. the 5-speed gearbox does seem to be quite an essential part of people's idea of a good Robin Hood, but personally I prefer the 4-speed, but that's just a personal preference. Definitely don't buy a car that's a non-runner. If you buy a car that's a non-runner, it really is a pig in the poke, and you can finish up spending an awful lot of money on that car to get it correct. The other thing is that we often get people ask us about not having a donor vehicle at all and buying the parts individually from a scrapyard, or go to a so-called specialist and buying donor vehicle packs. Now we strongly disencourage this. We feel that it's a lot better for the individual to go and buy his own donor vehicle, a complete car, and then strip it down himself. Basically, it is quite useful when you strip the donor vehicle down, because you do learn a lot from the stripping down, and this helps you to reassemble the completed car. But more important probably is the fact that by stripping the donor vehicle down yourself, you ensure that you get all the components that you actually need. Often when you go to a breaker's yard or to a specialist in donor parts, you don't get everything you need, or you don't get everything you need for the Robin Hood. So because we use all the components so heavily, the 70 parts we do use, it is a good idea to strip the vehicle down yourself. You can assess them, you can label them, you can clean them, and you can also work at your own pace. Now, we always get asked for a list of components that is needed for the from the donor vehicle. There is a reasonable list supplied in our literature, but now we'll go over the full list, or as many as I can remember, so that you know what you've got to keep and what you can throw away. Now, the whole of this video has to be viewed several times before you embark on the Robin Hood. We've deliberately not given you a list of these components, we've deliberately not given you an index to make you listen to the video, watch the video several times, and actually make your own list with regard to these donor vehicle products. So, just to go over the list, what we need is to condense the list. I'd say save everything from the donor vehicle, with the exception of the whole of the body shell, all the soft trim, and all the glass. If you throw those items away, body shell, soft trim, and the glass, and save everything else, you won't go far wrong. But to be more precise, from the donor vehicle, you do need, and I'll cross these off from my list here, as I tell you, and then if anybody thinks of anything else out there in the audience, then they can shout out and tell me. Now you need the engine and the gearbox. That's engine, gearbox. You need the pedal assembly, that's brake, clutch and accelerator, with the servo and the master cylinder. You need the engine mountings and the gearbox mountings, that's the rubber mountings. You don't need the gearbox cross member, you can throw that away. You do need the steering column and the steering column controls. That's everything off the steering column. That's all the indicators and everything like that, together with a bit of wiring that's on it. You do need the stub axles from the front. That's the stub axles complete with the calipers. They're important. You don't need them at first instruction, you can throw those away, but if you just hang on to them, there may be something else that you need, I forget now. So you do need the stub axles and the calipers. You do need the anti-roll bar. That's at the front of the car, the anti-roll bar, not to be confused with the rollover bar. You do need the anti-roll bar, and you particularly need those Omega-shaped clamps. You could really do with new rubbers. You do get the Compliance bush rubbers at the front. They're the rubbers that go into the track control arms, but the ones that go on the Omega-shaped clamps are usually okay, but for the low cost of those Ford items, you could really do with those as well. So save those, the bushers and the clamps. To go on to some lesser items, you need the handbrake gaiter, the gear lever gaiter, the gear knob, obviously the gear stick. you need the flasher unit and all the relays, you need the coolant hoses and the clips, you need the brake servo vacuum hose and which connects onto the inlet manifold. You need the throttle cable and the rubber grommet. Obviously the HT leads from the engine and everything else that's on the engine, like the alternator, the starter motor, everything like that. The engine earth strap, I can't quite remember what that is, but you definitely need that. That wants to go in the engine to the body to earth it. Otherwise it'll earth through the choke cable, which is unfortunate. Obviously with you, when it happened to you. You need the clutch cable and the grommet, but we would recommend a new clutch cable in any event. And if you've got an automatic adjuster, we'd recommend that you went out and bought a non-automatic one. Speedo cable and the grommet. And you need the wheels and the tyres. Don't throw those away anyway, because even if you plan on having nice new 5-spoke alloys and some Yamaha tyres, Pirelli tyres, and you'll need the old wheels and tyres to move your car about until you get the new ones that your auntie's going to buy you when it's your birthday, so you still need the old ones. You need the handbrake cable, but I would strongly recommend that you do get a new one. They're very inexpensive. If you do get a new one, make sure it's got the outer cable adjuster on it, the one that goes up and down the spiral cable. Obviously you need the handbrake lever, you need the gear lever with the 3 nuts that bolt into the top of the gearbox. From the petrol tank, you need the plastic filler pipe, that's the pipe that comes out of the tank, you need that. That supplements the cap you get from us. You will need a little bit of rubber petrol pipe, that's the bit that comes from the main pipe to the pump and to the tank. But again, we would recommend that you bought that new. But take it from the donor vehicle anyway. You need the petrol tank sender unit from the tank, so don't throw your tank away. People are anxious and quite correct in getting rid of the tanks as quick as possible because of children and pets. But no, fill the tank up with water the minute you take it off the car and take out the sender. It goes into the rubber in a different form. It comes through, fits into the tank in a different form than it does in the donor vehicle. So you don't now need the location ring from the tank. Be careful with the sender because it is delicate and often it's corroded, but usually it's serviceable. There is a cork gasket supplied in the kit. This goes underneath the sender, in between the tank and the sender. You'll have to cut this to size, as it is only a blank piece of cork. The sender is then held down with the 4 washers and the 4 6mm nuts. Don't over tighten them. You'll probably have to slightly rebend the arm with the float on it in the tank to get it to operate correctly. If you look at that carefully and form in your own mind how it works, then you'll do it quite easily. You also need to retain the petrol tank neck, that's a plastic neck. You do get a new grommet for that. It's a rubber ring that fits into the new tank in the same form it does in the old tank. Remember, it is possible you will have to shorten the neck of the tank so that it only goes into the tank 1 inch, not any more. To continue with the components that you need from the donor vehicle, in the Series 3 kit you do get a wiring loom, a new wiring loom, but this has to be supplemented with several of the connections from the old wiring loom. So as we speak now, it is essential that you do retain all the original wiring loom from the donor vehicle. Although you don't use it, there are parts of it that you do use. For instance, you do need the sub-assembly for the engine compartment, so you will need to follow that wire through and snip that off, and then you'll join that onto the new loom. You also need the multi-plug connections from the instruments and from the steering column cluster switches. There is separate instructions for this wiring loom, so if you refer to those carefully before you throw anything from the wiring loom away. As we've just said, we do need the steering column complete with the switches and with the all the controls on the column. You obviously still need the shroud and all the fixing screws for it. So the column comes complete with a bracket on it, the 2 planetary hole bracket that goes halfway down the column, and the column, as you know, is completed with a small triangular shaft that joins onto the steering shaft that's supplied by Robin Hood Engineering. This triangular shaft is telescopic and moves up and down inside the main shaft in the event of an accident. You no longer need the brake compensator that has been recently dispensed of. It's not needed. The weight distribution of the Robin Hood Series 3, in fact all Robin Hoods, is so good that a compensator is not needed. You do need the complete heater unit, that's the blower unit and the whole assembly, so save that together with all the controls and obviously all the heater tubes, Jubilee clips and such like. Obviously, although you're retaining the heater pipes, the rubber heater pipes, just check, make sure they're in good condition, and if they're at all perished, replace them. Often it's not necessary to replace them with genuine Ford Sierra heater units. Hoses, you can use ordinary straight heater hose, and you can complement this with ordinary domestic copper 15mm pipe with Yorkshire connections. You make quite a neat job of plumbing up the heater. You do need the fan from the heater, and then at the same part of the car you'll also need the windscreen wiper assembly complete, including the windscreen wiper arms. You will need those to modify those. You do need the windscreen washer bottle and all the little bits and pieces that go with it. The coil is needed, the horn's needed. You need all the instruments. Take all the instruments out of the car, the whole of the clusters, particularly with the connections that go on the back. It's a good idea to save all the mirrors. We're not quite certain where we stand yet with mirrors for the Series 3. According to the new regulations, the SVA regulations, these mirrors have to be E-marked. It's very difficult to buy mirrors now that have got the E-mark on them, so it may be possible that that might be something that could be yet relaxed. So save the mirrors from the donor vehicle, because on certain cars we have used them quite successfully. Cameraman, just point to that old Robin Hood there. You can see it just there. There it is. That's the standard Ford Sierra mirror tipped upside down. If you can also see the interior mirror, that works quite well as well. So save the mirrors because you might need them. And then just to carry on then, as you're stripping the donor vehicle down, every single nut and bolt, screw, washer, fastener, clip, grub it, save it, put it in the box and save it, because you may just need it. And obviously you'll still need the battery. If it's a good battery, when you took it from the donor vehicle, keep it charged up, don't let it go flat, because if it goes dead flat you might as well throw it away. Car batteries don't charge up, unlike traction batteries, from flat. Now, as far as I know, that is all the items from the donor vehicle that you need. I'm sure I've missed a few, no doubt I'll be reminded of them in the future. But just to recap, in case I have missed a few, don't throw anything away that unnecessarily at this stage now. What we say is throw the glass away, throw all the body shell away, and throw the soft trim away. Save everything else because you could need it. Okay, while I'm sat here I'm quite comfortable on this settee. I'll talk to you now about the new regulations, the SVA regulations. Now these regulations have come into force, and no doubt they are a good thing for the kit car industry and for everybody involved. I mean, it appears now that they are predominantly for the benefit of pedestrians who we might hit, and for the occupants of our kit cars in the event of an accident. We've gone to a lot of trouble to ensure that what we're supplying you now in the Series 3 kit does comply with these regulations. We've given you certain guidelines for you to build the car to. I must stress that it's very, very early days yet for these regulations, and I think I'll be quite safe in saying that nobody, not even the people, the bureaucrats involved in this new system, know exactly what's going to happen, and what will be passed and what won't pass. And I'm pretty certain that you'll agree with me that we'll reach situations where one officer decides something is okay and another officer at the other end of the country decides it isn't. It's a little bit like the old MOT. But I am certain, having spoken to these gentlemen, that they are quite helpful. They're not against us, they are with us, and it's pretty obvious that they want to help us. So if we can just adopt the right attitude towards this SVA regulations, I'm sure it'll turn out for the best. Basically it appears that once you've paid the £200 and you've submitted your car for this test, then it does appear that you don't have to go again for 3 years, a bit like a new vehicle. But the test is quite difficult. It's very safety conscious, and one of the problems is geographically there isn't just a station around the corner as there is in the MOT test. You can just nip round to Newmanshire and get it MOT. So you may have to go quite a long way to these stations, but I think at the end it'll be worthwhile. These regulations, as far as I know, come in on July the 1st. There will be some initial relaxations to the regulations, but after July the 1st, that's everything must go, every kit car must go for these regulations. So if there's any chance of you getting your car on the road for an ordinary MOT prior to that date, then that would be quite helpful if you didn't want to get involved with too much red tape. So I see no reason that people collecting these Series 3s on this first collection on March the 22nd, if you get a move on, perhaps just decide to trim the car at a later date, then it is quite possible you could get it through another MOT prior to that date, July the 1st. Now, in the kit, we've quite clearly covered a lot of the major items that's required by the SVA. Now, the items we're referring to is the glass, the safety glass, and I'm referring to the seat belts. So the glass has obviously got a kite mark on, the seat belts, the harnesses, we've gone to a lot of trouble, we've paid quite a lot of money actually to get seat belts that that's correct, that's British standard approved. There's lots and lots of seat belts on the market that are approved for racing, but they're not approved for on the road. So ours are actually approved to be used in conjunction with the SVA regulations. The lights, we've never had a problem with the lights. The lights are all E-marked, so there shouldn't be a problem with the lights. And other items on the body are hopefully correct. Now, I'm referring now to items that we've manufactured ourselves and items that we've changed recently to comply with the regulations. Now, if I was to interpret these regulations and to condense it, then I would say basically it's items on the body that would come in contact with either pedestrians, the driver, or the driver's sidekick. And it is important that there isn't anything in the inside of the car that sticks out that could damage anybody in the event of an accident. So I will refer in written instructions to you later with more precise details of the inside of the car. I'll get these on the copy or almost copied out of the actual manual. But in the meanwhile, what I would say to you when you're building your Robin Hood, please don't fit radios, don't fit auxiliary switches, don't fit map reading lamps, grab handles, anything like that. All the kind of normal things that people fit into the kit car, things that they take great pride in making the car different. Don't fit anything like that at all. In fact, I'd also say to you, don't fit anything on the outside of the body. Things that seem like a terrific idea in the past, like battery isolation switches, don't fit those. I mean, they're the very thing that are the biggest danger you get, those things sticking out. So don't fit those. Now, the items that we've supplied in your kit to help you, the main thing is snap-on finisher. So anything on the body which is sharp, any edges, then we've given you a snap-on finisher to go over that edge to protect it, or to protect the person that may come in contact with it. So we've given you ample of this material. It's plastic sprung inside material that snaps on the edge of panels. So later on when I get off this settee, I'll go around the car and show you the areas that we've covered. The other area that we've covered is on the windscreen. This old car, you can see just here that it has got a sharp edge on it there, and also, has always been the case, even on original cars, the front edge of the pillar sticks out. So what we've done now, we've rounded the windscreen off. It's the same frame, we've just actually ground it, fired it, rounded it off, and now the pillars don't have those holes in it. We've omitted the holes altogether so that you can fit the frame flush with the screen. So we'll show you that later on, and obviously that is rounded off as well. So that's just one of the things that we've done, but throughout the video later on when we get moving, looking at the completed car, we'll bring that in shortly, and we'll look at the completed car and just see what we've done to help that. The bonnet catchers have been a problem. We haven't managed to find suitable bonnet catchers, but hopefully we've got round this problem by making quite nice leatherette covers for these with 2 hood type fasteners that would go over those and give the potential victim protection from the sharp or the sharpish parts of the bonnet catch. I've already covered the silencer, that's got the new rounded end on it. And that basically covers the items in the kit which we've had to alter for the regulations. But we will, throughout your build, we will be keeping you well posted on the SVA scene. Anything we hear about, we will let you know straight away. Anything you do to your car that will help it to get through the SVA. In addition, what we'd like to do, that obviously you out there will have formed your own opinions with regards to what's needed for the SVA, and you'll probably look at our kit immediately and say, well, what about that? We really would like to hear from you. Anything that you feel that needs altering or improving for the SVA, then tell us, and we'll make sure that we pass the information on to builders, and if necessary, we'll supply them with material to help them with that. So just remember that we're here to help you, and anything that you can think about, let us know, we'll pass it on. Just briefly, the steering wheel and the steering column, the steering wheel is adequate. There isn't a problem with the steering wheel, that's okay. The steering boss doesn't need to be collapsed.